Time. Hey, everybody, this is Mac with Veterans Achieve Business Systems. Uh, Today we have a lovely young lady, Grace Sophia. She taught me how to say her last name. Uh, Grace has been around for what I think about 6 months now. Grace, am I correct there?
Yeah,
That
yeah, like 6, 8 months. Yep.
Yeah, and as I was saying earlier, before I turned the recorder on, Grace and I had the opportunity of being at an event together in Boulder a couple months ago, and we actually got to sit down at a table together and get to know each other. And her background story is pretty unique, and we all have unique stories, but I was taken aback in a good way listening to what she had to say because we had a connection. And so often, we make judgments. Oh, that person's not going to fit into my world. They shouldn't be on my path. And they're different. I'm different. And I came away saying, I want to know more about this lady, and that she's extremely intelligent was my perception in the conversation. Um, and I look forward to it today, um, just to get to know her better and her insight. Since they turned the recorder on, I will mention that Achieve Systems has their Denver conference coming up on June 12th and 13th. On June 2nd, I will be hosting at the same YouTube channel uh, a pre-conference Zoom. So anybody that would like to know how to show up and how to prepare and to start talking about who you would like to connect with, please join us. Invite your friends, your moms, your dads, your puppies, and maybe the turkeys that run through the yard. Uh, anyway, Grace, I'm going to turn this over to you. Uh, if you need to share your screen, just send me the request, and I'll approve that. And I'll be here to impose questions as we move forward. And this event will be on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/ at Veterans Achieve Business Systems. Later today, our previous speakers are already up there. And Grace, I look forward to it. Go ahead and go.
Okay, wonderful. Can everyone see my screen? Give me a thumbs up. Awesome. Thank you for that lovely introduction, Mac. I really enjoyed connecting with you both in person and also on Zoom in preparation for the invitation for this amazing opportunity to share about me and to share some tools around leadership and essentially nervous system regulation. So, I am originally from Siberia and I moved to New York City as a child, and it was quite stressful for my family. It was quite stressful for me to learn a new language and a whole new culture. And so this has been my life's work to essentially to apply science and also spiritual technology and basically combine them and so that we can be the most successful and also the most present that we can be as humans and as people who serve the greater community, because that's what we're here to do. And so my talk is called Your Nervous System Cells: How Self-Forgiveness Builds Unshakable Confidence and Results. So before you say a word, your nervous system is already speaking. I think that this is a truth with a capital T that those of us who have been in business a little bit longer have come to realize that, huh, my internal state is actually communicating to my audience so much more than anything I could have said, more so than my body language, more so than the words that I use, more so than even what I wear or what I look like or what color hair I have. And so this is something that I have also spoken about for Chief Speakers Live. So that talk shares different nervous system regulation tools. So I'd love for you guys to check that out when you have a chance. That's also on the YouTube channel. So essentially, when our nervous systems are calm and regulated, we can really essentially connect with our audience and with the people that we are trying to connect with, whether that person, whether our audience is a group that we're trying to sell to essentially include our services, or even someone that we're just trying to connect with in a friendship or perhaps even in a romantic relationship. Let me see some sparkle fingers if you guys resonate with this. Have you ever felt that like, wow, like when I'm stressed, people really notice, even if I don't say anything? Yeah. So, we're always in survival mode. The thing is, nervous system regulation basically shows us from the neuroscience level that there's often a huge amount of survival mode going on, where only about 90% of behavior is actually unconscious. And so the 10% that is conscious is what we actually have control over. And so the more that we can bring the consciousness to the unconsciousness, then we can actually be more conscious. But a lot of the time, that's because that 90% of our behavior is actually operating in survival mode. Survival mode means that essentially we are either working on with automatic strategies and also the strategies that we've learned from childhood and also the ones that we've learned perhaps in our, in your service as veterans and as service people. Survival mode can kind of look like when you are essentially just going through the motions. It can look like when you're feeling numb and you don't really know how to essentially find that inner motivation. It can also look like when you are in fight or flight or freeze or fawn. So that is essentially when the prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of your brain that sits in the frontal lobe, can be essentially overridden by the limbic center of the brain, which includes the amygdala and even the hippocampus, which relates to memory. So when we're in survival mode, it can be, like I said, fight. So that's when sometimes, right, we start to feel like, oh, we need to defend ourselves. And that's when our bodies go into this mode that we've really evolved from when we used to be hunter-gatherers and there used to be a tiger or a lion that would chase after us. Then all of the blood would drain out of our core and into our extremities so that we can run faster or so that we can actually fight and try to survive. Unfortunately, our brains and our physiology haven't actually evolved past this type of processing. So, but our brains, our frontal lobes have gotten bigger. So essentially, so we can actually create more of that balance and bring more of that blood flow back to the prefrontal cortex through practicing these different kinds of strategies and nervous system regulation. Give me some sparkle fingers if you've ever felt like you were stressed and then you were emotionally numb. How about when you were stressed and you went into avoidance? Perhaps some dopamine addiction through scrolling your phone. Yeah. Yeah. How about some procrastination? Oh, I'll just put that off to next week. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, essentially, so this is just part of what it means to be human. Survival mode can also mean when we're feeling stressed and essentially, and not only are we in fight, like we're feeling aggressive or we're feeling this energy in our limbs and want to essentially run away, or essentially, or, defend our position. It can also mean when we're going to do this thing called fawning. Fawning is an emotional response where perhaps somebody's asking you something and you just say yes. And you're just nodding your head and you just go with the flow, but really you're just agreeing with them because you're in a nervous system dysregulated state. So this can also happen a lot to people in business and people and women who, when we're actually being overwhelmed. And so we just go along with whatever people say and we're just like nodding our heads and then we forget what we've even agreed to. Have you guys ever had that situation? No?
A lot with my kids, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. So, and then the last kind of nervous system dysregulation, it can be freeze. So that can actually be when perhaps you blank out, like somebody asked you a question or somebody asked you to do something, and then you essentially blanked out and you were in this freeze response. This is where we get the saying deer in the headlights. Have you guys ever felt like that, or perhaps seen it in someone else where they're just like frozen? And not in a Zoom kind of way. So these are all nervous system signs of dysregulation, and something that I love to do is to help people to bring awareness to these situations so that they can actually practice what it feels like, and then be able to essentially expand through it and maybe even detour and go more into a regulated kind of state. So your body essentially cannot fully build while it still believes it's surviving. So essentially, have you guys ever been in a situation where you really need to make a sales call, but you're feeling either numbed or you're feeling frozen? Let's raise your hand if that happens to you. And so essentially this nervous system dysregulation essentially expands into our sales and into our service and into essentially our inability to really follow through. And perhaps even with visibility, does anyone ever get shy with like posting images or photos or taking a video of themselves? Visibility can also be very dysregulating for people when we're in these kinds of dysregulated states. And so essentially, not only does this dysregulated state happen and can harm our relationships, but it can actually really prevent our growth and our flow in terms of building our businesses and essentially expanding into areas where we might not feel as confident or as comfortable. What's one thing that you guys want to essentially experience more of in your business? What's an area of crunchiness that you feel like could actually is blocking you from growing? You could put that into the chat. I'd love to see. So there's this incredible nervous system dysregulation loop that happens that when we're in these numb states of emotionally numb of like freezing, or in these fawning or fight or flight states, right? And then we don't actually end up following through with that sales call or with that presentation, right? Or with that follow up, even following up, right? After we've made the offer, and then we don't follow up, we can actually create this this really unfortunate and maladaptive strategy of shame. And so shame actually causes contraction. which actually leads to even more isolation, overthinking, avoidance, perfectionism, or an even like emotional shutdown. And so essentially when we're going through these cycles, it actually begets them more and more. And it can be really difficult to actually to expand again. What's one way that you guys resonate with this in terms of shame? Have you ever been in a shame spiral of like, oh man, I should have gotten that presentation done and I didn't, and instead I just wanted to like smoke a cigar and have a drink and let me just delay it just a little bit longer, and then you're like, oh, why did I do that? Can anyone relate to that? Give me some sparkle fingers. And so this is actually, so shame and disgust are also part of the neuroscience physiology in the brain. There's an area in the brain called the insula, and that's the part that gets enacted with disgust. And disgust is actually a very biologically adaptive area to have, because that actually helps us to remember when we've been actually sick with something, with a physiological like disease, maybe like don't eat those berries, right? Because they made you sick. And so it'll actually activate that same area of the brain that also has that same area of the brain of disgust for emotions. And so our emotions are actually really connected to our physiology. And so when we have that area acting and awakened, it can actually, again, prevent greater blood flow and greater activation through other parts of the brain that are related to creativity and also to peacefulness. And so I wanted to share a really important tool that that is very, very quick and something that you can practice to actually get you out of the shame spiral and move you more into a state of compassion and self-forgiveness. Okay. Sorry, my slides went forward. I thought they were stuck. Now I'm trying to go back. So essentially, you cannot create a peaceful future from a nervous system still punishing itself for the past. And so the tool that I wanted to share with you, it's called Ho'oponopono. It comes from Hawaii, and it's really simple, and it comes from the Hawaiian spirituality. And essentially, this system alone can actually help you to move energy, not just within yourself, but also even forgive others when you feel a little bit stuck in a relationship. Perhaps, there's crunchiness between you and perhaps a business partner or a joint venture person. Perhaps they flaked and they missed a couple meetings, or they haven't gotten back to you, and you're feeling the sense of like, ooh, like, is there a sense of disrespect, or how do I move past this? And the thing is, that energy, if you hold on to that energy, it will actually translate in all of your presentations and in all of your relationships. We are actually energy, according to quantum physics and all of the most recent science. And that energy can even translate, even in a text message. And so this process, I would love to take you through it. If you feel open, raise your hand. Great. So this process is really, really simple. So I would first ask you to start to close your eyes and find a comfortable seat. Having an erect spine really allows the energy to move through and helps you to connect deeper through to heaven and to earth. So have your shoulders back. Feel that your heart space is essentially like a sunflower shining and opening towards the sun. And now let's think about a situation where you feel like you want some forgiveness for yourself. Maybe it was with a child and you were a little bit abrupt. Maybe you didn't do that workout. Perhaps you skipped leg day. It doesn't matter what it is. Just think about anything that's the first thing that pops into your mind. And just notice that energy. Does it feel a little bit more constricted in your space? I feel that. I feel immediately my legs tense up as if I'm getting ready for flight or even fight. And just let it be there. Nothing heals without validation. And you can just even say hello to that feeling, like hello, anger, hello, shame. Perhaps even just like seeing the energy in front of you and giving it a color, giving it a texture. And now you can practice the prayer. I am sorry. Or even I apologize. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Now notice, did something shift? Maybe it's subtle, maybe it isn't. Just know that you can come back to this practice and just like working out and exercising a muscle, the more that you do it, the stronger it'll get. This practice can stay with you and can become not only a great part of your toolkit, but it can help you to bring you back to yourself. And the more you forgive yourself, you'll find that the easier you are with forgiving others. It's that eternal law of the universe, as above, so below, as within, so without. And like I said, you can practice this even with someone you might feel a little bit of tension with. Maybe you don't even know why you feel tension with them. But similarly, you just bring their image in front of you and you just whisper or say this prayer out loud. I actually give you a challenge to practice this prayer for 5 minutes every day, maybe before bed, or maybe first thing when you wake up. When you anchor a new tool with an already existing practice, it'll be more likely to happen. So come back to yourself and slowly open your eyes. And please go post something in the chat if you felt the difference. Thank you for doing this practice with me. Another tool that I wanted to share with you is called Coherence. And this is about breath and physiology. So if you breathe before you speak, you can also moderate and bring your nervous system into a state of calm We call this in neuroscience rest and digest. And that's when actually all of the blood flow and the neurotransmitters go from exciting, from yang or yang energy into more yin. And that's where the blood flow comes out of the extremities and back into the core, into your belly. And so this tool is actually where you just practice deep breathing and you inhale for 5 and you exhale for 5. And if we have time, we can come back to that. And if you just practice this for 5 minutes, the neuroscience literature shows that this will actually decrease your rate of having a stroke, of having a heart attack. And it'll actually help you to come into a state of calm and relaxation so that when you share, when you lead, when you perform, you can actually be witnessed and heard and listened to at a much deeper level. One more tool is called the physiological sigh. And this one is actually really quick. So we can do this together if you feel called. It's where you breathe in deeply through your nose. Take one more sip through the nose and you exhale with your mouth. So breathe in deeply through the nose. And at the top of the breath, you inhale one more time. And you let it go with the loud sigh through the mouth. And that's called the physiological sigh. And the last tool I'll share is called Awakening Presence. And this actually is incorporated with your visual field because when your nervous system is stressed, essentially what happens is that your brain focuses on the tunnel vision because it's looking for that escape route. But if you actually expand your visual field, your body physiologically will feel safer. Similarly to just when you smile, and that can actually create more of a dopamine response, and it actually can trick your brain into thinking that you're happy. So with this one, essentially keep your neck still, look out at the horizon, look out in front of you, and now just move your eyes to the left, to the right, to the top, to the bottom, and then widen your visual field. Every time I do that, I naturally have a sigh at the end, and I just feel so much more aware and present. And this is something you can do really quickly right before you get on that sales call or right before you make that presentation. So this is part of all of my graceful magnetic method. So essentially we went through a couple of the strategies: breathe, release, and awaken. The release was actually the first part, which is releasing shame through the Ho'oponopono prayer. So that's what we started with. So essentially, when you follow these different tools, you can actually calibrate your nervous system, and then you can lead, and then you can perform. And the whole time that you're doing it, your cortisol will become balanced, your stress hormones will essentially go down, and you can actually really enjoy your life and find that you'll have more energy at the end of the day for your relationships, for your children, and you'll have more experiences of creativity because you weren't essentially just operating out of stress and fumes. So I'm Grace Tzofia, and I have a few spots for those of us who attended this call or who want to reach out. That QR code goes to my calendar. And so what I'm offering is a complimentary nervous system leadership audit. And I'm so happy to have been here today with you, and I would love to answer any questions you might have. My background is in cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm a published neuroscience researcher, and I work with clients. I love to work with them long term, for around a year, even or longer. And I essentially help them to rework their nervous systems so that you can have a more productive and beautiful life. Thank you so much.
Wow. Uh, Thank you, Grace. As we go through this stuff, I think a lot of us understand certain aspects of our life, you know, where we're confident, where we're not confident. What do we get nervous about? Is it a certain person that, makes us more nervous? Uh, when I was younger, the whole military thing, I would have people say that I was intimidating. And I wasn't trying to be intimidating. It's just my personality. And I'm kind of a direct person. Um, I've come to say that everything is practice until the right opportunity comes along. Um, I had one of my mentors, I had an issue with a customer. I was a young rep, and one of my mentors said, Mac, you were a Marine. Are you afraid of this guy? I said, no. And he said, do you think he's going to shoot you and throw you bloody in the street? I said, not likely. And then he says, well, why are you intimidated by him? And I've used that as a coaching technique with a lot of people, but I think we have to understand that sometimes there's goofballs in the world and they intimidate intentionally. And then we have to have enough confidence in ourselves to not be intimidated. So, I in listening to yours, I've seen some of this doctrine before, in that, but there was other things that I've not been exposed to before, and I want to get more. And that because I'm a believer that the more I absorb, the better I will be personally.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, I've had this experience as well where people have been intimidated by me most of my life, and that's kind of a cultural thing. Because I grew up in the East Coast. I grew up, needing to kind of really look out for myself because my family was very much just focused on survival. And so being a direct communicator can definitely be intimidating. But also, I think that the people that are intimidated through direct communication are the ones who are just projecting their own fear, right? So I don't know if that situation that you described, right, that people see you as intimidating because you're direct, it's really because, right, they're not doing the work in terms of processing their own fear and their own dysregulation. So when we're intimidated by others, right, either their nervous system is dysregulated, and so they're coming out at us from a stressful, dysregulated way, and we are empathically, right, connecting with that, and so we start to feel unsafe, which again, these tools and coaching with the nervous system strategists like myself can really essentially help us to discern what's ours and what's not, and also to be able to essentially come into our own nervous system regulation and coherence so that our field can be so much stronger than theirs. And then the nervous system regulation coherence that we actually embody and that we actually project can actually impact them. And so we can all start to feel safer, more confident, and more successful.
Do you think that there's some people that because they don't feel comfortable with themselves, that when they meet new people, they're expecting those people to challenge them or to make them unsafe?
Definitely, definitely. And this is where we get into a little bit of like personality disorder physiology is like a lot of like narcissism it actually comes from an underlying lack of confidence and a lack of security. within these people. And so they can actually project their own lack of regulation and their own lack of safety within themselves and confidence by challenging others in order to essentially dominate. And it's really coming from this strategy because they don't feel safe. Absolutely.
Interesting. Who else has questions? We all have our individual personalities. Ken.
So what's like a stress pattern that you see in entrepreneurs like us that we rarely recognize in ourselves, aside from now that you have mentioned about fawning, the avoidance, and um, lack of confidence? Are there any like stress patterns you could tell us?
Yeah, I mean, how it shows up for each individual can be really individualized. But for instance, when a person is stressed about performing, their sleep is really negatively impacted. So for the people that are waking up with insomnia, or perhaps even like staying up late in order to essentially make themselves so tired that they have to fall asleep, right? Instead of actually allowing and creating a good sleep hygiene routine to get the best kind of sleep and wake up the most rested. I think that's a dominant way that I see that entrepreneurs really essentially overwhelm their nervous system is through lack of good sleep hygiene. And then it goes into the whole, cycle of excessive caffeine use and really relying on that 3 or 4 cups of coffee and getting those jitters and then wiping out all of their good feeling hormones like serotonin and depleting their dopamine through excessive use of, yeah, stimulants. I think that's kind of a thing that has been really popularized, in the 80s with all the stockbrokers using cocaine, right? Like you don't feel your feelings if you're actually relying on stimulants as well.
I see. Thank you. And can I ask one more thing? What does like the first 30 days look like for someone who starts working with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my approach is very individualized. I don't take a cookie cutter approach, but essentially I'll look at if you decide to do the leadership nervous system audit, we're going to look at all of the pain points that you specifically individually have, and then essentially come up with actual solutions for those. Anyone who works with me, before we start with the growth and the creativity, right? And we always try to essentially solve whatever issues are actually preventing you from loving yourself unconditionally at the root. And that goes through, yeah, a lot of habits and negative and maladaptive strategies like through shame and blame and poor sleep and even poor execution through nutrition and through even self-talk. So I take a very balanced and comprehensive approach, but first we're going to really get at the core issues.
I see. Thank you, Grace.
Yeah,
And great presentation.
Thank you.
yeah. And what you just said made me think of something that I've talked about. I had a one of my mentors escaped out of Nazi Germany in 39. He worked for a camera company called Leica, and Leica was kind of like Schindler that they made the movie about. The company was trying to get their Jewish employees out of occupied territory, and Henry would talk about making presentations about products. He became very wealthy man, first man to import Japanese photo products after the war into the US. And he said, we're going to give people a headache and sell them the aspirin. And how I interpret is that is most of us that we're taking our time to be on this Zoom. We know, even if we don't admit it out loud, we know there's something more that we need and we're looking for it. But maybe we cannot identify it. But if somebody can help us identify what the headache is, and they have the cure, the aspirin, then we're in a better place. So I love the fact that all these different modalities that you're talking about, and I've identified with a lot of them myself, and but I identifying what I need or what each of us individually need, and having a safe space to talk to somebody to help us put it into focus and then guide us on how to correct it. I love the whole process.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Thank you. And in psychotherapy, we really focus more on pathologizing and like labeling and like getting at this is the disorder and this is what it looks like. And, while I have that background, my approach is so much more about like anything is possible. And when we can actually integrate, right, our own awareness with being witnessed by a loving person, a loving presence, and then combining that and embracing spiritual technology, anything is possible. I've worked with other veterans who essentially were agoraphobic and had generalized anxiety disorder, and their previous therapists essentially really gave up on them, and they said like they just need medication, through the SSRIs and a lot of off-label use of essentially antipsychotics, that can actually again force people to go to sleep so that perhaps they, have different things, but that actually creates numbing, right? So it's a lot more of an approach based off of like numbing and controlling the symptoms rather than getting at the root cause. And so where I really stand out is that my intuitive abilities allow me to help you identify the exact root cause. Perhaps, like you said, Mac, perhaps it's ancestral trauma. The literature shows that descendants of Holocaust survivors who didn't even know that they were descendants of Holocaust survivors have higher cortisol and have more stress, right? Perhaps essentially it's childhood trauma, right? Perhaps it's trauma from and PTSD that hasn't been fully addressed through the VA and through these other systems, right? But if we can get at the very core root and essentially help that inner child heal and connect you with your ancestors and like I said, really rely on the spiritual technology and combine it with actual cognitive behavioral and strategies around, adapting physiology, then, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I think you're correct. Um, I think of the emotional and the psychological draw drawbacks. And then, seeing my friend Darlene here, she's been smacking me around for about 8 months now with my personal health, the physiological health. Um, I wonder, how much correlation between the emotional, psychological, and the physical, what that how does that what's the synergy of the complete person.
Yeah, it's very connected. Um, yeah. I don't know if you're asking Grace or anybody.
Asking you too, because that's why I work with you, and it, and I laugh at that whole relationship in a good way because yeah, I actually am in touch with myself.
Yeah. Well, and you know that that's part of it. So you relate a lot to what Grace Tzofia is talking about because you can be all in. You can understand intellectually what the purpose is we're doing, understanding what is at the root, right? The data will show us through all the tests that we've run for you. And then you have the process. It's very personalized to you. nutrition, magnesium, D, zinc, right? You've done it all, inflammation, blood sugar. But sometimes there's this time where people don't, they'll spend all the money on the supplements, but they won't take it. Or we'll set goals. You and I, Mac, we set goals. And you're a star student, so I'm not going to say that you don't comply. But there are people who they get the information, the instruction, and then they still don't do it months and months in a row. They're paying all of this money to hear the same thing. So that is part of why we know we must look at nervous system regulation. How do we address those stressors outside of what the data shows about your cortisol? So yeah, it's crucial. And sometimes it does take longer than a few months because you've got the, if one is able to talk about it, right? The ancestral trauma, and then you've got your upbringing in this lifetime of trauma. And some people just don't recognize that as relevant.
Grace, do you and Darlene know each other?
Not well, but yeah, I'm excited to connect
It
with you,
might be,
Darlene.
yeah. I would love to see the two of you talk in a group mode, a joint stage mode, because I think that the crossover in the subjects, well, they're necessary, and that people don't always get both sides of the story. So, uh, I hope everyone's coming to conference and we get to see each other. If you have questions, if you want to set up times, let me know. As I mentioned earlier, next Tuesday evening, the 2nd, um, at 6 o'clock Mountain Time, I'll be doing a Zoom just to, excuse me, just to talk about how do we show up, how do we get the most value the following week at the conference? Who do we want to know? Do you want to stay local? Can you take what you do and talk to somebody? And I have people coming in from Canada, from New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania. I think I got 4 people coming from Houston, which was part of my territory. It's interesting how this has all come about. I just had 3 people sign up yesterday, and I don't know who they are, but they got my golden ticket. So I feel like Willy Wonka. But any last minute questions? Steve and Arca, you guys have been kind of quiet today, and that you are muted. Is there something you would like to say? I know Steve's talking on the mastermind in a couple weeks here.
Yeah, yeah. Um, great, great presentation, Grace. Thank you. And I very much related to what you shared also, Grace, that brought back to my memory of a little while back, I was speaking to a group and got caught in traffic getting there and got there on time, but was so stressed that I was using all the breathing techniques and I still was not my calm usual self. And the talk didn't go as well. So I know that that's a very important factor.
Grace, I think when people start watching this, those of us that are live and the ones watching the recording, you're going to have some people coming to you and whispering, "Can you help me? I need a little help. Can you guide me?" Because if we know that we have certain fears, we don't want to tell the whole world we have certain fears. So you're going to be having a lot of private conversations until people get comfortable. Anyway, I'm thank you all for joining today. I have a new young lady speaking next weekend, Amy Rickman. She is a homeopathic specialist, but her background, she worked with the military, multiple countries. She was uh, as she refers to it, the administrative desk person for the chief of naval operations for 12 years at the Pentagon. So it should be interesting. taking it from the military perspective to the homeopathic type of medical advice that she gives. And I'm looking forward to it. And I think we're booked until August, but we're still looking for more speakers, Ken, Darlene, and that to get on and talk about what you guys do so the rest of the world can have the same shared experience that I do. So I look forward to it. Have a great week. Think of me. I'll be at Red Rocks getting crazy tomorrow, watching Carlos Santana. We'll talk to you all soon.